The year is 2026, but to understand the danger lurking beneath us, we must look at a series of events that began in the cold, gray stretches of the North Atlantic just months ago. Picture a NATO naval patrol, equipped with the most advanced radar and sonar systems on the planet, cutting through a thick morning fog. Suddenly, a blip appears. A vessel is sitting perfectly still in a region of the ocean where there are no fish to catch and no commercial ports for hundreds of miles. As the patrol draws closer, the silhouette of the ship emerges from the mist. It has no military markings. It flies a civilian research flag. To the untrained eye, it looks like a group of scientists studying the migration of whales or the temperature of the currents. But on the sonar screens of the NATO officers, something chilling is happening. Directly beneath this stationary ghost ship, 6,000 feet down in the crushing darkness of the abyss, lies a fiber-optic artery. This single cable carries the encrypted financial data of the world's largest banks and the private communications of entire governments. This is not a random encounter. This is a sighting of the Shadow Fleet, a growing armada of Russian-controlled vessels that are currently engaged in the most extensive and dangerous mapping mission in human history. While the world's attention is fixed on the wars fought on land and the political dramas of the surface, a silent, invisible preparation for a global digital blackout is being executed on the ocean floor. For decades, the seabed was considered a sanctuary, a place too deep and too hostile for sabotage. But the Shadow Fleet has changed the rules of the game. These ships are the ghosts of the Atlantic, moving with their transponders turned off, disappearing from commercial tracking systems for weeks at a time. They are not here to explore. They are here to identify the exact kill points of the global internet. The stakes could not be higher. If the Shadow Fleet completes its mission, the Russian military will possess a digital kill switch, the ability to plunge North America and Europe into a pre-industrial darkness at the push of a button. No missiles required, no boots on the ground, just a well-placed cut in a silent trench that the world forgot to guard. In this documentary, we are peeling back the veil of secrecy surrounding the main Directorate of Deep-Sea Research, known as GUGI. We will investigate the specialized motherships, the nuclear-powered mini-subs, and the terrifying forensic evidence that proves the Atlantic abyss is no longer a silent frontier. It is the front line of a war that has already begun. Welcome to Trench Waters and the investigation into the Shadow Fleet. If the Shadow Fleet has a flagship, a crown jewel of deep-sea deception, it is a vessel named the Yantar. On the surface, the Yantar is registered as an oceanographic research ship operated by the Russian Academy of Sciences. It is painted in the standard civilian colors of white and blue, and it carries the equipment one might expect for scientific study. But to NATO intelligence, the Yantar is one of the most monitored vessels on Earth. It is not a ship of science, it is a mothership for the apocalypse. Commissioned in 2015, the Yantar is nearly 350 feet long and packed with a level of technology that far exceeds any standard research requirements. Its primary purpose isn't to study marine life or geological formations. It is to serve as a mobile platform for two of the most advanced deep-sea submersibles ever built, the Consul and the Rus. These are not your typical research submarines. The Consul and Rus are titanium-hulled, nuclear-capable mini-subs that can carry a crew of 3 down to depths of 6,000 meters, nearly 20,000 feet. At these depths, the water pressure is enough to crush a standard submarine like a tin can. But the Yantar's submersibles are designed to thrive in this hostile environment. They are equipped with high-definition cameras, powerful sonar arrays, and most importantly, dual robotic arms with extreme precision. These robotic arms are capable of performing delicate tasks in total darkness. Tasks like attaching an inductive tap to a fiber-optic cable to steal data, or deploying hydraulic shears that can cut through reinforced steel armor in a single stroke. This is what makes the Yantar so terrifying. It possesses the surgical precision to tamper with the world's digital nerves without triggering an immediate alarm. The Yantar's movements over the last decade have created a haunting map of Western vulnerability. In 2015, it was spotted hovering over the cables connecting the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay. In 2017, it was tracked near the transatlantic cables off the coast of Ireland. In 2021, it spent weeks loitering in the English Channel. In every instance, the ship's AIS transponder, the system that tells the world where a ship is, mysteriously flickered off just as it reached the most critical junctions of the undersea network. But the Yantar doesn't work alone. It uses an advanced dynamic positioning system, allowing it to stay perfectly still over a single point on the ocean floor, even in heavy Atlantic swells. This stability is crucial for launching and recovering its submersibles. While the ship sits stationary on the surface, the Consul or Rus is deployed through a moon pool in the center of the ship, descending silently into the abyss. Under the cover of international law, the Yantar claims it is merely mapping the seabed, and in a way it is, but it isn't mapping mountains or trenches. It is mapping the single points of failure in our global infrastructure. It is identifying the exact spots where cables cross each other, the places where they are buried in soft silt, and the areas where they are exposed on rocky outcrops. Every time the Yantar hovers over a cable, it is essentially placing a digital scalpel against the throat of the West. It is gathering the intelligence needed for a day zero strike, a coordinated attack that could disconnect entire continents in a matter of hours. The Yantar is a ghost that haunts the digital arteries of the world, and as we will see, it is only one part of a much larger, more secretive organization. To truly understand the Shadow Fleet, one must look beyond the ships and into the heart of the Kremlin's most secretive military wing. Most people have heard of the GRU, or the FSB, Russia's famous intelligence agencies. But there is another organization, one that operates in total silence and with a budget that dwarfs many small nations. It is known as GUGI, the main Directorate of Deep-Sea Research. GUGI is not a part of the standard Russian Navy. It does not report to the admiral of the fleet. Instead, GUGI is an elite, independent branch that reports directly to the Ministry of Defense and the President of the Russian Federation. Its headquarters are hidden in the closed military cities of the Kola Peninsula, far above the Arctic Circle, protected by layers of heavy security and the frozen reach of the Barents Sea. While the standard Russian Navy focuses on surface battles and nuclear deterrence, GUGI has a much more specialized mission: seabed warfare. They are the architects of the invisible war. Their personnel are not called sailors, they are known as hydronauts. These are the elite of the elite, often hand-picked from the top ranks of the submarine fleet. The training for a GUGI hydronaut is as intense as that of a cosmonaut. They must master the ability to operate in total darkness under the immense pressure of the deep ocean, where the smallest mechanical failure means an instant, crushing death. They spend months in saturation chambers, breathing specialized gas mixtures to prepare their bodies for the depths. Their mission is to be the masters of the abyss, to be able to find, tap, or destroy any object on the ocean floor, no matter how small or how well hidden. GUGI's fleet is unique in the world. In addition to the mothership Yantar, they operate a series of nuclear-powered special-purpose submarines. The most famous among them is the Belgorod, a massive vessel that is nearly 180 meters long, longer than even the legendary Typhoon-class submarines. The Belgorod is designed to act as a carrier, transporting smaller, deep-diving submarines like the Loshchik to their targets. The Loshchik is perhaps the most mysterious submarine ever built. Its inner hull is composed of a series of interconnected titanium spheres, a design that allows it to withstand pressures that would flatten any other vessel. In 2019, a tragic fire on the Losharik claimed the lives of 14 high-ranking officers, nearly all of them decorated heroes of Russia. This loss revealed a startling fact to Western intelligence. Even a small GUGI submarine is manned by some of the most senior and highly trained officers in the entire Russian military. Why would the Kremlin dedicate so much high-ranking talent and billions of dollars to a few small submarines? The answer lies in GUGI's primary objective, the total information blockade. In the event of a conflict with the West, GUGI is tasked with severing the undersea cables that provide NATO with its tactical communication and the global economy with its lifelines. They are the guardians of a dark secret, that the world's most advanced civilization is built on a foundation of glass and steel that is almost entirely undefended. GUGI has spent decades preparing for the day the order is given to cut the cords. They aren't just researchers, they are the specialists of the digital apocalypse, trained to operate in the one place where nobody can see them coming. In the world of seabed warfare, you don't need 1,000 bombs to cripple a continent. You only need to know where to cut. This is the primary mission of the Shadow Fleet, the meticulous millimeter-by-millimeter mapping of the West's digital vulnerabilities. But how does a civilian-looking ship find a cable the size of a garden hose in an ocean millions of miles wide? The answer lies in a sophisticated combination of historical data and high-tech forensic mapping. The process begins with open-source intelligence. Most undersea cable routes are, ironically, public knowledge to prevent fishing boats from snagging them. But these public maps are general. They don't show the exact physical condition of the cable or the topography of the sand covering it. This is where the Shadow Fleet's research begins. Using multi-beam echo scounders, ships like the Yantar bounce high-frequency sound waves off the ocean floor. This creates a high-resolution 3D map of the seabed, revealing exactly where a cable is exposed on a rocky ridge or buried deep in the silt. But the Shadow Fleet is looking for something very specific: high-value target zones. These are locations where multiple cables cross each other, or choke points, where the geography forces dozens of lines into a narrow corridor. By mapping these crossings, GUGI identified spots where a single well-placed explosive or a heavy-duty hydraulic shear could sever 3 or 4 international links simultaneously. Once a target is identified, the Shadow Fleet employs its most effective weapon of all: digital invisibility. Under international maritime law, every large vessel must carry an AIS, an automatic identification system that broadcasts its position, speed, and heading to prevent collisions. But the ships of the Shadow Fleet are masters of AIS spoofing and going dark. Naval analysts have documented numerous instances where a Russian research vessel enters a sensitive area and suddenly its digital signal vanishes from global tracking screens. For days, the ship becomes a ghost. During this period of silence, the mini-subs are launched. They descend to the target coordinates guided by internal inertial navigation systems that don't require GPS. They photograph the cable, test its electromagnetic signature, and in some cases, place sleeper sensors nearby, small devices that can monitor traffic or wait for a signal to vibrate and weaken the cable over time. When the ship finally reappears on radar miles away, it has successfully updated the Kremlin's target database of the abyss. This database is a digital hit list. It contains the exact GPS coordinates, the depth, the cable type, and the required tool for destruction for every major link between North America and Europe. This mapping isn't just about preparing for a future war, it is a form of psychological pressure. By loitering over these cables, the Shadow Fleet is sending a message to the West. We know where your nerves are. We know how fragile you are, and we can disconnect you whenever we choose. Every time a ghost ship hovers over a transatlantic line is a silent rehearsal for the day the world hopes will never come, the day the map is finally used to turn off the lights of the modern world. While the mapping of the abyss happens in secret, the results of that mapping have started to break through to the surface in the form of chilling, real-world encounters. In the last 24 months, the North Atlantic and the Baltic Sea have become the front lines of a maritime game of cat and mouse that feels more like a Cold War thriller than modern diplomacy. These aren't just rumors, they are documented incidents where the Shadow Fleet was caught in the act. One of the most disturbing cases occurred in late 2024 off the rugged western coast of Ireland. The Irish government, which possesses almost no naval power to protect its vast underwater territory, watched helplessly as the Yantar, that notorious mothership, entered its exclusive economic zone. For days, the ship hovered directly over the Celtic and AE Connect 1 cables, which serve as the primary digital bridges between the data centers of Dublin and the financial hubs of New York. When the Irish Air Corps flew over the vessel, they saw a ship that was silent, its AIS turned off, and its heavy-duty cranes positioned for submersible deployment. It wasn't there for research, it was conducting a stress test on the West's most vital information artery. But the Baltic Sea has seen even more aggressive maneuvers. In November 2024, the Sea Lion 1 cable, the only direct link between Finland and Germany, was severed in an area of the sea where Russian research vessels had been loitering for nearly a week. Just hours later, another cable connecting Lithuania to Sweden was cut. While the world looked for a smoking gun, naval investigators found a pattern. The Russian vessels weren't just passing through, they were surveying the seabed with a level of intensity that suggested they were practicing for a coordinated strike. The North Sea has its own ghosts. In 2025, Norwegian intelligence reported a massive spike in abnormal loitering by Russian trawlers over the cables that connect Norway's massive offshore gas platforms to the UK and Europe. These aren't just internet cables, they carry the telemetry data that controls Europe's energy supply. By hovering over these specific points, the Shadow Fleet sent a clear message: we don't just control your data, we control your warmth and your industry. Perhaps the most haunting encounter was the Ghost Pack incident of 2025. NATO sonar detected 3 unmarked vessels moving in a perfect formation across the Atlantic Ridge, staying exactly 1,000 meters apart, the precise distance needed to map a wide corridor of the seabed in a single pass. When a British Type 23 frigate arrived to investigate, the 3 ships simultaneously turned on their AIS, identified themselves as fishing trawlers, and scattered in different directions. But sonar recordings later revealed they weren't towing nets, they were towing high-frequency towed arrays designed to listen for underwater cable repeaters. These encounters prove that the Shadow Fleet is no longer just preparing, they are actively testing the reaction times of Western navies. They are learning how long a frigate will arrive, how close an aircraft will fly, and how much they can get away with before a formal diplomatic protest is filed. Every loitering ship and every ghost blip on the radar is a data point in GUGI's master plan. The abyss is no longer a hiding place, it is a laboratory for the digital apocalypse. In the world of international espionage, the best place to hide is often in plain sight. This is the core philosophy of the Shadow Fleet's research deception. To the untrained eye, and even to the strict letter of maritime law, these ships appear to be harmless actors in the global commons. But behind the civilian paint and the scientific flags lies a masterclass in tactical camouflage. By exploiting the very laws meant to protect global trade, the Shadow Fleet has turned the ocean's legal framework into a weapon. The primary tool in this deception is a legal concept known as innocent passage. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, every vessel, including those owned by foreign governments, has the right to pass through the territorial waters of another state as long as it is not prejudicial to the peace, good order, or security of the coastal state. This creates a massive loophole. A Russian vessel can hover over a critical internet cable off the coast of the United States or the United Kingdom, and as long as they claim they are repairing an engine or studying salt levels, it is legally difficult to force them to leave. But the deception goes deeper than just legal paperwork. It extends to the physical design of the ships themselves. NATO intelligence has identified dozens of civilian trawlers that are in reality highly modified military platforms. These ships are built with modular mission bays. From the outside, they look like standard fishing boats with nets and winches, but hidden beneath the deck are heavy-duty industrial cranes and thermal cutting tools that can be deployed through hidden hatches in the hull, known as moon pools. This allows a shadow fleet vessel to perform a military operation while appearing to be engaged in a commercial activity. If a maritime patrol aircraft flies overhead, all they see are sailors on deck wearing casual sweaters and rain gear. But beneath their feet, in a pressurized control room, GUGI hydronauts are wearing military headsets, navigating a multi-million-dollar submersible toward a strategic cable. The crews themselves are a part of the mask. Many of the scientists on board these vessels are actually high-ranking officers in the Russian military. They hold PhDs in oceanography and marine engineering, but their real specialty is the forensic analysis of undersea infrastructure. They are trained to blend into the civilian maritime world, using fake identities and commercial aliases to obscure the fact that they report directly to the Ministry of Defense. The deception is further compounded by the use of flags of convenience. Some Shadow Fleet vessels are not even registered in Russia. They fly the flags of nations like Panama, Liberia, or the Marshall Islands. This makes tracking the true ownership of the vessel a bureaucratic nightmare for Western intelligence. By the time an investigator can trace the ship's funding back to a Kremlin-linked shell company, the vessel has already finished its mapping mission and disappeared back into the Arctic. This gray zone tactic is designed to paralyze the decision-making of Western leaders. If a NATO commander fires on or boards a civilian research ship, they risk starting a major international incident or even a war. The Shadow Fleet knows this. They operate with a sense of plausible deniability, daring the West to stop them while they meticulously plan the destruction of the very networks that allow the modern world to function. It is a game of high-stakes poker where the Russian side is playing with a marked deck hidden in the sleeves of a researcher's lab coat. For years, the Shadow Fleet operated with near impunity, sheltered by the West's complacency and the sheer vastness of the ocean. But the blatant sabotages of 2024 and 2025 served as a violent wake-up call. The world's leading naval powers have finally realized that they are in a race against time to protect the invisible arteries of their survival. This has sparked a massive multi-billion-dollar counteroffensive, a defensive mobilization that has turned the Atlantic into the most monitored body of water in human history. The first line of defense is a technological rebirth of a Cold War legend, SOSUS. During the 1960s, the U.S. Navy used the Sound Surveillance System, a chain of underwater hydrophones, to track Soviet submarines. Today, NATO has launched SOSUS 2.0. This is a decentralized network of thousands of tiny fiber-optic acoustic sensors embedded directly into the armor of the undersea cables themselves. These sensors don't just listen for submarines. They use AI-driven acoustic fingerprinting to distinguish between the sound of a passing whale, a merchant ship's propeller, and the specific high-frequency whine of a Shadow Fleet submersible's robotic motor. But monitoring is only half the battle. You need to be able to intervene. In 2025, NATO officially established the Undersea Infrastructure Coordination Cell at its maritime headquarters in Northwood, UK. This war room is a digital fortress where data from satellites, maritime patrol aircraft, and undersea sensors are fused into a single seabed common operating picture. For the first time, Western commanders can see a heat map of abnormal maritime behavior. If a Russian trawler slows down over a cable junction in the mid-Atlantic, the system automatically flags it as a threat event, and a nearby frigate or a P-8 Poseidon aircraft is immediately scrambled to babysit the vessel. The response isn't just digital, it's physical. The UK's Royal Navy has commissioned the RFA Proteus, a specialized multi-role ocean surveillance ship designed specifically to hunt the Shadow Fleet. Unlike traditional warships, the Proteus is a floating high-tech laboratory equipped with its own fleet of autonomous underwater drones that can shadow Russian mini-subs in the dark. At the same time, the U.S. Navy has increased the funding for its integrated undersea surveillance system, creating deep-sea quick reaction teams, elite divers and drone operators who can be deployed to a damaged cable site within hours. However, the greatest challenge in this counter-response is the legal battlefield. To stop the Shadow Fleet from using innocent passage as a shield, Western nations are pushing for new international maritime laws. There is a movement to create maritime security zones around critical cable clusters, areas where any unauthorized loitering would be considered an act of aggression, allowing navies to board and inspect suspicious research vessels. But even with all this technology and legal maneuvering, the advantage still lies with the attacker. The ocean is too big to guard every inch, and the Shadow Fleet only needs to succeed once. NATO is now playing a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole, trying to protect thousands of miles of glass thread from an enemy that can strike anywhere at any time with total deniability. The digital shield is being built as fast as possible, but the question remains, is it enough to stop a ghost that has already spent a decade mapping every crack in the armor? As we stand on the shores of 2026, looking out over the vast, undulating surface of the Atlantic, it is easy to be deceived by its calm. We see a world of trade, of travel, and of natural beauty. But as we have uncovered in this investigation, beneath that surface lies a reality that most are not prepared to face. The Shadow Fleet is no longer a ghost story or a conspiracy theory. It is a meticulously organized, state-sponsored apparatus that has spent the last decade preparing for a day the world may never recover from. The mission of GUGI and its hydronauts has been a resounding success. They have mapped our nerves. They have identified every junction, every repeater, and every kill point of the global digital infrastructure. They have hovered over our financial lifelines, whispered past our military sensors, and practiced the surgical strikes that could disconnect a continent in the time it takes to brew a cup of coffee. The digital kill switch is no longer a theoretical weapon. It is a physical reality resting in the hands of the Kremlin. The true horror of the Shadow Fleet lies in its silence. Unlike a nuclear missile launch, which is detected in seconds and met with immediate retaliation, seabed warfare is designed for deniability. If the cables are cut tomorrow, the world will spend days, perhaps weeks, arguing over whether it was an accident, a natural disaster, or an act of war. In that period of confusion, the damage is already done. Economies will collapse, communications will fracture, and the very fabric of our interconnected society will begin to unravel. We are living in an era where the most powerful weapons are not the loudest, but the quietest. The Shadow Fleet represents the ultimate evolution of hybrid warfare, the ability to wage war without ever declaring it. They have proven that in the 21st century, you don't need to conquer a nation's territory if you can conquer its data. You don't need to destroy a city if you can erase its digital existence. As we conclude this investigation into the Atlantic abyss, we are left with a haunting realization. The cables that connect us, the glass threads that hold our bank accounts, our secrets, and our relationships are as fragile as they are vital. We have built our entire civilization on a foundation that we cannot see and can barely protect. The Shadow Fleet hasn't cut the wires yet, but they have placed the blade. The question is no longer if they will strike, but when the map they have spent a decade creating will finally be put to use. The abyss is no longer a silent frontier. It is a loaded gun pointed at the heart of the modern world. If you found this deep dive into the Shadow Fleet and the invisible war beneath us compelling, please show your support for the channel. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions allow us to keep investigating the high-tech mysteries that others ignore. Join us here at Trenchwaters, where we dive into the secrets they want to keep submerged. Let us know in the comments below. In a world of digital shadows, do you think we can ever truly protect our connections? Or is a total blackout now inevitable? Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and always remember, the most dangerous threats are the ones lurking in the dark.